Good evening, friends. It's looking a little odd. I hope not imposing myself or whatever it is, but so kind of the organizers and Mr. Pillai. As a matter of fact, there are so many activities happening regarding the electric vehicles, and in that overall thing that time sharing is becoming difficult. I'm just hopping between the events after events. Just now, there's something happening on the Global Business Summit. They wanted to have a roundtable discussion on electric vehicles, so just coming from there. So I just wanted to emphasize the point that so much of action on the electric vehicles, and I'll say a few things which to my mind appear to be critical. The massive technical disruption which is going to take place in a short time now, and there is a talk about the tipping point. So these are the 2-3 things I will speak. The disruption is going to be caused by the electric vehicles, batteries, shared mobility, and autonomous vehicles. That's what is being said. Now, if I can't ignore the subject matter of the current panel discussion which is going on, so all these things are interlinked with that, whether to have the charging infrastructure and what kind of a charging infrastructure is needed, and what is the relevance. So first, what is the disruption which is going to take place is because of the electric vehicles. Why? For the simple reason, electric vehicles are 1/10 of the cost of running an electric vehicle is that of the compared to the gas vehicle. The maintenance cost of the electric vehicle is 1/10 of the gas vehicle, and the life of an electric vehicle is 2.5 times of the gas vehicle. So why electric vehicles are not going to succeed? So there is going to be adopted. The question arises as to why electric vehicles which were developed prior to the diesel vehicles in 1837, why they have not been adopted at that point of time. So friends, the very simple issue is that the convergence of technologies which is happening now is now paving the way for the adoption of electric vehicles and the clean energy mobility, and more so because the need has been realized that we need to cut into our pollution levels and carbon footprints. So there is no denying the fact that clean energy mobility or the electric vehicles are going to be adopted, are going to be accepted for the 3 simple reasons which I said. And cost of an empty electric vehicle, that is the electric vehicle without battery, is cheaper than the empty gas vehicle, that is the internal combustion engine vehicle without the petrol or the diesel. Now the add-on is that is the battery cost. The price of the battery, which were projected by the leading think tanks, leading consulting organizations, and those who are experts in projecting the future, they projected a price fall in 2015, 2017. The organizations like BNEF, Bloomberg, Morgan Stanley, and likewise, they projected certain prices of the battery in year 2018, 2019, and the price of the battery in 2019 were lower than what the best projection of the BNEF was about the price of per kilowatt hour of the battery. How does it happen? The smart people of the smart organizations go wrong in looking at the future, looking at the writing which is on the wall. 1985, AT&T gave a study to McKinsey. I hope some of people are smiling. They must have read that Tony Seba book or presentation. In 1985, they gave the study to McKinsey as to what will be the mobile phone user population in year 2000. So McKinsey gave them a figure of 900,000 cell phone users would be there in the year 2000. But the actual figure was, anybody knows it? Yeah, so in the actual figure was 109 million, and McKinsey went wrong by 120 times. So that is why I say smart people from the smart organizations, they fail to read the writing on the wall. Friends, it took only 10 years for the adoption of automobile cars and the automobile in the US. And this disruption is going to take much shorter than that, because the learning curves are becoming steeper and steeper. Rather than going this way, now they are going this way. So that's what is happening, and people are talking about. I'm coming from a panel discussion just now, so my other colleagues from BHEL and ESL were saying that the tipping point has yet to come, but I would say that the tipping point has arrived. Now it is just that we are not able to make the user or educate the user sufficiently, otherwise it's only a matter of time when the people will be choosing the better option. There are so many people, whoever knows me personally, and in any gathering where I'm in a social gathering or in a personal this thing, people ask me, should I buy a car or shouldn't I hold it? So this, I'm on and on, repeatedly I'm trying to give this answer to the people as to whether to go in for buying a new car or what to do like that. So these things are happening, and as the people get educated, and that happens very fast. The adoption of electric rickshaw is showing as to the learning is very fast and the people go for it. So friends, in this context, India is in a unique position to leapfrog the adoption of electric vehicles, and the linked thing is the battery storage for taking care of the grid infrastructure which is needed. Why India is in a position to leapfrog? Because we have the smallest proportion of the individually owned cars, only 20 cars per 1,000 population, compared to 1,000 in 900 or 800 in US or 600 in Europe and likewise. So we have a great potential to move over from the individually owned car to the shared or fleet operators or the shared mobility or the buses, public transport. And that is where a study which last year, 2019, early part of the last year, first half of the last year, was done by the Morgan Stanley. I had tried to show it, rather 2 years back, I had tried to show it in our Global Mobility Summit also in 2018, September, showing that India would be higher than the China in terms of the shared mobility, which is going to come true. And I wish it comes true, because that will put less restrictions on our stressed infrastructure. Now the second disruption is going to be by the batteries. Now, irrespective of the chemistry, irrespective of the lithium ion or the lithium ion not being found in India, I mean, of course, a little bit of it has been found in India, not being found in India, not being mined in India, the battery storage is going to disrupt and make the need for the grid to a large extent redundant, in the sense that if you generate the energy from the renewable sources at a place, you store it there and you consume it there. So that the microgrid thing, mini grid thing, we have been talking about it, but then irrespective of the grid, the realities should be there, and the rooftop solar and other things which have been talked about. And it will also put a lot of relief on the infrastructure which needs to be put in for the grids at rest, and it will provide the disruption which is going to be there along with the mobility and along with the battery storage. And the shared mobility as it is being projected, the miles traveled, India is again in a unique position for the leapfrog, for the simple reason we have the very small trip size. The average trip size of India is less than 5 kilometers, around 5 kilometers. And non-motorized travel in India is around between 50 to 60%. Those figures we wrote in our NITI AAYOG report, which we wrote in 2017. So these are the findings, these are the realities of India, and there the question of shared mobility comes, and that's where probably going to disrupt the total mobility or the mobility scene too much. Now coming to the battery, the charging infrastructure scenario, a lot of talk was going on earlier, and I used to talk about chicken and egg and all that thing, but then we deliberated upon it. We had multiple rounds, much more than multiple rounds of discussions. We tried to tell DST to come out with the Indian standards of charging protocols. That also being done, but I think to a very large extent it met with a fiasco. We couldn't move forward with that. Charging infrastructure, Ministry of Power have come out with their guidelines as to what kind of charging stations would be given subsidy under the FAME. They also have come out very earlier, much earlier than that the charging is a non-regulated activity. They cap the tariff of the charging power. All these amendments were done by the various ministries and the departments earlier. And to tell you, about 20 to 25 major policy decisions have been taken by the ministries and the departments of the Government of India. Around 14, 15 state governments have come out with their EV policies. So all these synergies are working, and we in the NITI AAYOG claim to be coordinating these activities at various levels. Now, I was talking about the charging stations, or the kind of charging stations which should be encouraged, and the range anxiety. So friends, after seeing and after having gone through this exercise and whatever NITI AAYOG we did, the theoretical exercise, to some extent we are reaching to the conclusion that the range anxiety is not the criticality for the adoption of electric vehicles. My friend, the chairman CEO of the ESL, he is recently started driving one of the bigger electric vehicles which have been introduced in Indian markets with a range of 300 plus kilometers. And he very smilingly told me yesterday, sir, range anxiety is not an issue now. So look at his thing, whereas he knows that there are no fast charging stations around in the country, but he says 300 kilometers is good enough. It meets all his requirements for the daily travel, and then he goes back home and he charges his car at home. Globally also, the business model for providing fast public charging stations has not been successful, and in fact China has withdrawn the subsidy on the public charging, fast DC charging stations in China. And talking about the direct fiscal incentives or the subsidies, worldwide the subsidies are going to be withdrawn from this year onwards, and that also reflects that the tipping point from the global understanding, from the global considerations, from the understanding of the other countries is reaching. Tipping point is approaching, and it's going to make economically or financially viable to have the electric vehicles, lasting adoption of the electric vehicles. So charging stations are needed, fast DC charging stations are needed. DHI has sanctioned more than 2,500 charging stations by various agencies. 1,000 crores have been earmarked under the FAME scheme for subsidizing the charging stations. But then when 80 to 85% of the charging is done at the personal individual premises, whether the home, office, or the residence or a shopping area, then the public charging space is only 15% requirement, and when one is moving for a longer distances. So that is where the range anxiety comes in, and that needs to be taken care of. A lot of initiatives, a lot of work is going on in the charging stations as well. So this is probably a few things I wanted to convey, which are very relevant in the current scenario. And friends, let me tell you that today I am speaking about it. The scenario or the entire gamut of activities in the electric vehicle adoption is changing so fast that I really don't know what I would be speaking tomorrow, and that's why probably I don't get a PowerPoint presentation prepared, so that you prepare it in the evening and the next day morning the PowerPoint presentation becomes obsolete. So So that is the pace at which scenario is changing. We better read as to what is there on the wall and what is there in the future to come. And let's welcome this disruption with an objective of and with the motive of making India successful in reaching to a pole position where we do design, develop, and have the market in the in our country, make best use of the Indian size and the scale, and jump from there to have face the global industry and lead the global industry. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Pillai.